Hi, good morning. It's Jessica once again, and I am going to do something a little different today, or well, I guess maybe for the first time. I have a delightful pile of books that I have been slowly accumulating over the past few months, and I want to share them with you. And this will be the first time that I am doing a video without some sort of a script situation, so I'm sure we'll figure out whether or not that was a terrible decision. So, I should probably say that I almost never, unless I get a gift card or something like that, buy new books. I very much love to go scouring through a thrift store or a used bookstore or the antique mall or whatever to find books. And I'm very much one of those people that if it costs more than about $4, I'm like, is it worth it? Yes. I suppose that's all to say you're not really probably, with the exception of maybe one, the first one that I'm going to talk about, there's not a whole lot of popular fiction per se. That's just really not my wheelhouse. I'm not even sure I could tell you what the most talked about popular fiction is at the moment. This is my very long-winded way of trying to say I think I have sort of odd taste in books, both in how I acquire them and what I like to read. And I have separated them out into two piles. One is the fiction pile and one is the nonfiction pile. So yes, if that sounds interesting to you, hooray, stick around. If you enjoy book hauls with more popular fiction, this probably isn't what that's going to be, but you're still welcome to stick around, but just, you know, setting expectations. Okay, so this first one is one that I got at a thrift store. Yes, it probably would have been a good idea to separate these based on where I got them, but I didn't do that, so sorry. Devil in the White City by Erik Larson. And this is actually the only, oh gosh, the glare, yikes. There we go. This is actually the only one that I have already read. Very uncharacteristically for me, I listened to the audiobook. It was during a trip, long story, it doesn't matter. My husband had the audiobook, I listened to it, I actually really liked it, which is again, uncharacteristic for, I really struggle with audiobooks. I don't listen to them very often, but I actually really liked it. And this was several years ago, and I told myself that if I ever found a not expensive copy at a thrift store or something, that I would get it because I really wanted to have a hard copy. And lo and behold, there it is. So, yeah, this was $2, but yes, it is about the World Fair. Is it the World Fair? Yes. In the late 19th century. And Erik Larson is very good at taking historical information, historical events, things that really happened, and sort of filling them out. This is technically fiction, but he has based it on events that did transpire. And he sort of brings together juxtapositions, if you will, two simultaneous occurrences that you wouldn't necessarily think go together, but they're fascinating, around the World's Fair. I think it's called the World's Fair in Chicago, and it's sort of a, I don't want to say a murder mystery, that doesn't feel right exactly, but it's very good. So, huzzah! There's that one. Then we have this, which is The Octopus by Frank Norris. Let's see if I can manage to do any of these without a glare. I don't think so. No. The Octopus. Also probably not in focus, so that'll be real cute. Nope, out of focus. How lovely. Yeah, but yeah. The Octopus by Frank Norris. And I found this at a used bookstore that is right across the street from where one of my children goes to play therapy. So while she is in her play therapy, I go meander around this used bookstore, which is of course wonderful. And I found this, and I think this feels like a very 1970s cover to me. And the name immediately struck me, The Octopus by Frank Norris, but there's no, it's very clear from the cover, it's almost this pastoral scene with the horses and the lightning in the background. Like, why is it called The Octopus? But this was apparently a novel written at the very beginning of the 20th century to expose some of the less than reputable, let's say, practices of the railroad in California. I think it also has something to do with wheat farmers. Yeah, besides Devil in the White City, I haven't read any of the rest of these, so the descriptions are going to be not fabulous, but it just sounded so very interesting. And yeah, the back says, The Octopus is America's first big novel of social protest, a milestone in modern realism. Yes, so I wonder if it will be anything like Upton Sinclair's The Jungle. I have absolutely no idea. Pure speculation, but it had that kind of a vibe when I was reading the back. And yeah, this was $2, so huzzah. All right, next we have The Gallery by John Horne Burns. I guess I'll give up on trying to zoom in because, yeah, I'll just put the titles across the bottom. So great. Yes, The Gallery by John Horne Burns. I also found this one at a thrift store, and I picked this up and was like, I'm buying it without even knowing what it was, because I am an absolute auto buy at any thrift store, at any used bookstore, when I see a book by, well, I don't know why I'm bothering to do this, but New York Review Books is down there. You can't see it. I don't know what. It's not gonna happen. But yes, New York Review Books, there's the little logo at the bottom of the spine. It's always just NYRB inside a little oval at the bottom. And I always keep an eye out for this because they are a very interesting publishing house. As you may have guessed, they are the publishing arm of the New York Book Review, New York Review Books. I'm not sure what its technical title is of the two of those, but it's fairly small, and they tend to publish things that have been out of print or have fallen out of print, or maybe didn't get quite as much popular hullabaloo when they were first published, but now with time people have come to realize, oh, this was a very important piece of work. And so they always just have the most interesting, unusual books. And so I've just gotten to the point, and every single one that I've read, and I've read fiction, nonfiction, they're always interesting, they're always off the beaten path. They're doing some wonderful work over there. So anyway, I saw their logo on the side and I was like, we're buying it. We're buying it. It's at the thrift store. I think it was $3. And I didn't even look at the description of what it was until I got it home. Like, that's how confident I am with MYRB that it's going to be a good book. And I think it is. And just to read from the back, set in occupied Naples in 1944, the gallery takes its name from the Galleria Umberto, I probably butchered the Italian, a bombed-out arcade where soldiers and civilians come together in pursuit of food, drink, sex, money, and oblivion. A daring and enduring novel, and one of the first to look directly at gay life in the military, the gallery surveys the devastated world left behind by what Paul Fussell calls in his new introduction to this masterpiece, quote, the worst war in history. Doesn't that sound intriguing? And then I also found out that the man who wrote this, John Horne Burns, very unexpectedly died in his mid-30s, not long after he wrote that. Wrote this, and which is just tragic to me. That's always very sad, I think, when a person writes kind of a tour de force and then doesn't get the opportunity to try again. You know, what could have been. But anyway, that's neither here nor there. So, yes, very excited about this. Hopefully it will be good. All right. This one is called The Street by Ann Petry. I don't know if it's Petry or Petry. Petry. I actually tried to look up the correct pronunciation and no luck, so I'm very sorry if I'm pronouncing it wrong. Yes, this sounded incredible. I actually found this on a book outlet kind of website whose name is escaping me at the moment. That's embarrassing, but I had a coupon for it, which is what prompted me going to look, and I found this. And I love the colors. I love the black and yellow. That's actually what originally drew me to it. The aesthetic. And then I read the description and was like, oh, that sounds very good. The Street follows the spirited Ludi Johnson, a newly single mother whose efforts to claim a share of the American dream for herself and her young son meet frustration at every turn in 1940s Harlem. Opening a fresh perspective on the realities and challenges of black, female, working-class life, The Street became the first novel by an African-American woman to sell more than 1 million copies. Yes, shoot it straight into my veins. Sounds really, really interesting. I looked up the author. Her name sounded vaguely familiar to me, but I don't think I've read any of her other work. So yeah, I'm really excited to read this one. And I'm assuming maybe it was on the outlet site because it's got this mark that kind of tiny bit bled onto the front of the cover. Who knows? But anyway, that'll be good, I think. Okay. Then, ooh, this is a good one. Okay, so once again, thrift store. I think it was like, this was less than $2. I think it was like $1.70 or something. This is Evelina by Frances Burney, and it is an Oxford University Press edition with the white and the red, which is another publication aesthetic that I keep an eye out for. Their stuff is usually pretty good. And it is not in awesome condition, which doesn't usually slow me down a whole lot. Whoever read this really read it. Like, the spine is, again, you can't, I don't know why I'm problems with using an old camera, but the spine is quite worn. And yes, but the reason that I got this, and the way that I snatched this off of the shelf at the thrift store is because I have known of the title of this book and its author, who I usually hear referred to as Fanny Burney, but she's listed here as Frances Burney. It's a woman. Because this was one of the absolute favorite authors of Jane Austen. And she read her novels, loved them, mentioned them. Obviously, that's why we know that she liked them. And, Burney was one of the first, well, maybe not, but a very popular female writer of the 18th century, sort of like a generation before Jane Austen. And, you know, because I'm this kind of nerd, I listen to many lectures and podcasts and different things on Jane Austen, and I had heard this woman's name come up many times, and this particular novel, Evelina, come up many times. And so I saw it in the thrift store and I was like, huh, kismet, like we're buying it. So very exciting. I'm so looking forward to reading this. I think it will be really interesting to read it with the knowledge in mind that this was one of Jane Austen's favorites, which we're not going to go off down the rabbit hole of Jane Austen. I could do that. I'm going to refrain. Self-control. Okay, next. Ooh, yes, this one's great. Okay. Another thrift store one. Yes. $1.50, I think. Very, very good. And it immediately caught my eye because this is a book by Harriet Beecher Stowe, but it is not Uncle Tom's Cabin, which is usually, in my experience, like the only book you ever hear about related to Harriet Beecher Stowe. Rightfully, like I get it, but you just almost never see any of her other books. And I'll be honest, I was not confident. Like if someone had just come up to me and started quizzing me and said, hey, did Harriet Beecher Stowe write other novels besides Uncle Tom's Cabin? I'm not sure. I would have been able to very confidently say yes. My educated guess would have been yes, but I was actually a little embarrassed when I saw this on the shelf and was like, oh, a different, not Uncle Tom's Cabin book by Harriet Beecher Stowe. Do tell. It's called The Minister's Wooing, which, once again, like, I'm not really sure why I'm bothering to try to do this. Okay. And it has an absolutely bulletproof, it's a paperback, but it has that really hardcore laminated library binding on it. The library does not mess around, by the way. Because I buy a lot of former library books, and the library wants to make sure that those books are going to last through an apocalypse. Just saying. Which I love them for that. But yeah, you can see the library tag on the edge. But it was so charming to me. And at first I was sad because I thought it didn't have a stamp inside that said what library it was from, because they almost always do. But I finally found it on the back cover. It's from the Milwaukee Public Library, which always kills me. I am not anywhere near Milwaukee. That is not the state that I live in at all. And whenever I go to a thrift store or a library book sale or whatever, antique mall, and you find a library book that is from some very not nearby part of the country or even the world, that's just fascinating to me. You know, how did you get here? How did you get, like, you know, there's a really good story for how this got from the Milwaukee Public Library to a thrift store near where I live. And you'll never know, which haunts me a little bit, but there's just something so incredibly charming about that to me. And it's got withdrawn stickers all over it as well. It was withdrawn from the library in 2004. So it's had quite a little journey, apparently, since then. But anyway, back to the actual book. It sounded very interesting. I think it is about a love triangle, if you will, in a New England town, I believe. Hence, you know, the minister's wooing. I'm assuming this is the minister's love interest. I guess I'll find out. But yes, I just love that. Okay, next. Next, okay, this was less than $1. So just bring that right on up. This this was very much an impulse purchase, but I read this book as a child, Tuck Everlasting by Natalie Babbitt, and I don't love movie covers. I could go off on a whole tangent. I'm sorry, I don't. But for 75 cents, beggars can't be choosers. And I don't buy a ton of children's literature, but this one is a bit nostalgic for me because as I said, I did read this as a child. I don't remember it terribly well, I have to say, but I do like to transcribe children's literature. Oh, and we're gonna drop the book. Yeah, that's sort of just like a little exercise that I like to do, transcribing things with all of my fountain pens and ink. Another niche hobby for a different discussion, but this felt perfect to do. Right now I'm smack dab in the middle of The Trumpet of the Swan for transcription, but I figured this would be great for when I finished that. For 75 cents, absolutely. Okay, so there's that one. Then we have, I'm realizing as I go through these, I have a lot of war adjacent fiction, which is interesting, but very famous book, All Quiet on the Western Front by Erich Remarque. I don't know if I'm pronouncing his name correctly. German, I believe. Remarque. Yes, All Quiet on the Western Front. And this is a vintage classics edition, which I believe is a British public, and it's got the red spine. So you don't see them very often here in the United States, so when I see one, I tend to grab it up. I also have, oh goodness, something by Aldous Huxley that I found in this edition as well, the vintage classics. And this is centering around World War I do believe. Yes, and I if memory serves, it's a very almost hyper-realistic, gruesome portrayal of life in the trenches. So probably not going to be a fun read, but I've heard the name so many times over the course of my life of the title, All Quiet on the Western Front. And I love the cover art too. The cover art on these particular editions, I love it so much. It's so good. So yes, huzzah! That'll be a good one. Next, okay, probably the most self-indulgent of my purchases. Oh, All Quiet on the Western Front was thrift store. I don't know if I said that or not, but that was thrift store. These are two little Pelican Shakespeares. I don't know if you would call them pocket editions, but they're pretty small. And one is Twelfth Night, holding them up with no confidence that you can actually see, and one is Othello. And I love, they have the prices on the front, which I absolutely love. Othello was 65 cents. It's like incorporated into the cover art. There's 65 cents down there at the bottom. And Twelfth Night was 50 cents. And I found these at a used bookstore that I had never been to before. The thrill. But when my parents were here visiting, I was able to go check it out. And it was great. I found great stuff. And these are two of the things that I found. Now, when I say that they were self-indulgent, what I mean is that I absolutely did not need these little pocket editions because, oh, I have visual aids, because, look at that. I have the complete Pelican Shakespeare. I'm going to talk about a doorstop. This was my required textbook from the Shakespeare class that I took in college many moons ago. So I literally, definitionally, have all of the Shakespeare already. Unnecessary. Why? But I'm sorry. I couldn't help it. First of all, they're just so charming with the little art with the stages and the people. I just love them. And this one is so discolored. This one has had a life. This one has been on a journey. I will never know what it is. Once again, that kills me. But this one has seen some things, because it is not the same mint color as the other one. It is now a swampy green, which feels indicative. But they're just so charming, and these are actually two plays of Shakespeare that I really, really love. The absolute score would have been A Midsummer Night's Dream, but beggars can't be choosers if you're not gonna pay full price for things. And the former owners wrote in these. Janet in particular, she's the one who owned Twelfth Night, and Janet Lyman was doing some work in this book. She was dedicated. She was circling things, she had her pencil out, and I love that. I love that. I know some people don't like buying used books that people have already done a lot of work in, shall we say. And sometimes that bothers me depending on what it is, but in this particular case, it absolutely doesn't. And I would just love to know why Janet was using this. Business or pleasure, if you will. So that's that one. And then Othello, I'm sorry to say, was owned by a man named John, who wrote his name so exuberantly that I can't make out what his last name says. But that was it. He was not a dedicated student like Janet. He wrote his name in it, and that was the end of it. So, but anyway, I just love that. So, did I need these? No, but I just, oh, I loved them so much. Next, okay, this was also from that same bookstore that I talked about for the Pelican Shakespeare that I had never been to before, and they had so many Terry Pratchett Discworld books, which is not usually the case. So I'm not really usually one for science fiction very much at all, or fantasy. I can hear everyone booing and hissing in the background. I have a very hard time with that. I have theories about why that might be the case, but I have a few exceptions, one of which is Terry Pratchett. I think because it's satire, and he does such a smart job of it, and I really appreciate that. I'm tragic. I am tragic at satire. I'm terrible at it. My brain is too literal to write satire. But he has this entire series of books that are sort of hilarious, almost absurdist fantasy sci-fi satires, and they're set in this world he has created called Discworld, and I just love them. But they, very interestingly, are usually quite expensive. Even these little tiny paperbacks, and they're usually pretty much always this size, very small, are so pricey, and I would love to know why that's the case. I don't know if it's because he's I believe, don't quote me on this, I think he's a British writer. So I don't know if he just doesn't get published as often over here in the United States. I have no idea. But anyway, whenever I see one of his books, I buy it. I think this one was $6, which is kind of pricey for me, but for a Terry Pratchett book is actually not bad. So I will sometimes see very, very used, beat up copies of Terry Pratchett Discworld books, and they are selling those puppies for $10, $11, $15. So I felt like $6 for a very nice copy that's not, it's been read, but it's fine, was good. And I didn't have this one. Yes. In this latest satiric triumph, King Verence, in a fit of enlightened democracy and ebullient goodwill, perfect, unthinkingly invites Uberwald's undead, the magpies, into Lancre to celebrate the birth of his daughter. I don't know if I'm pronouncing that name correctly. But everyone knows you don't invite a vampire into your home unless, of course, you want a permanent guest. So good. They're so funny. Read them, they're so good. Okay, next we have Buddenbrooks by Thomas Mann, also found at that same used bookstore that I went to for the first time with my parents. And actually, I managed to like put all those together inadvertently. Well done. So look at this cover. Once again, a Vintage Classics edition. The big red spine immediately caught my eye, and I was like, oh, that's mine now. Very much like the New York Review Books publication book. I was like, I don't even need to know what it's about. Like, we're probably gonna get it. And the cover just really caught me. But apparently this is a novel written, oh gosh, was it written in the 20th century? I believe so. Early 20th century, depicting a German family over multiple generations, I believe. Mostly throughout the 19th century, I think. Haven't read it, but it sounds very, very interesting, and it immediately made me think of, oh, I brought it over. Well done, well done. If it's going to be anything like A Legacy by Sybil Bedford, which is also a multi-generational German family story, sort of depicting the changing social structures of Germany as they pass from the 19th century into the 20th. So it may be nothing like this at all, but this just immediately popped in my head when I read the description. So yes, this one was a little more expensive, I'm assuming because it's so chunky. I think this was I think this is the most expensive book I have in my pile. Actually, this is $10, but I feel like it was worth it. Okay. We've made it to the nonfiction. I feel like you probably have a pretty good idea by now of the type of books that I get. Okay, so I also love nonfiction, which is a more recent taste I've developed. I absolutely hated it as a kid and a young adult, so that's very fascinating. Different subject. Okay, this one is very beat up and was literally only 50 cents, so that tracks. But this is Socialism by Michael Harrington, and I found it at the thrift store, and the name was immediately intriguing. When you see a name like this, you don't ever know if it's going to be an interesting look at the thing or a screed against the thing, if you know what I'm saying. So you kind of have to like pick it up and figure it out. And so I picked it up, and it said a towering work of relevance for our time by the author of The Other America. And this cover is so 1970s, I can't stand it, which is when this came out. And I saw like The Other America, and my brain was like, oh, we know that. We know that title. Why do we know that? Did some Googling, etc., etc. It doesn't matter. I think this will be very, very interesting. He is basically detailing the historical, definitional reality of what is socialism. So it's not a screed against socialism. And I think he identified himself as a democratic socialist. And The Other America, which is, I guess, his more famous book, is, I think, like a bit of an expose about American poverty in the 1960s, I think. So this will be very interesting, I hope. It is quite beat up, but one of the things that I really loved about it is that it still has its library checkout card. Quite tragically, with no checkout stamps, which I find a little sad, but I loved that. I absolutely loved that. So it was like 50 cents. Absolutely. Okay, there's that. Next, this was found with the Socialism book on the same trip to the thrift store. This was $1 something. Once a Penguin Modern Classic with the mint, yet another one that I look out for. This is Pedagogy of the Oppressed by Paulo Freire. I'm probably butchering his last name, I'm so sorry. Freire. And I don't know if you can tell, but this is that cover with the little pencil that's been wound with the twine onto this piece of wood so that it looks like a rifle. A+. Yes, so this is a quite famous book. And I knew enough to know that the title popped out at me and this, etc., etc. But for sociology, I believe. And he's basically discussing his theory on the best way to educate. And particularly how to teach the poor, how the poor are currently taught, and why he has a problem with that, and how he thinks it would be better. Fascinating, yes. Lovely, can't wait to read that. That'll be very, very interesting. I really enjoy books about education, theories of education. What's it called? Teaching to Transgress by Bell Hooks. A+, that's a good one. Anyway, resist to the rabbit hole. Okay, next, another thrift store. I think this was $2. When I tell you that I was so excited to find this, and this is such a nerd excitement. I'm so sorry. So this is John Brown's Body by Stephen Vincent Benét. This is a book that won, oh gosh, was it a Pulitzer Prize for poetry? I think. Winner of the Pulitzer Prize. It says it on the cover. Well done. Thank you so much. In the 1920s, I believe. So not recent. But it is an epic poem of sorts, which is very interesting, right? For a 20th century poet. In a lot of ways, that's not necessarily a medium that gets used a lot, maybe. In that time period, I think when we think of an epic poem, we tend to think of much older works. But my brain has this weird thing that it does where it's often 4 steps ahead of me, and then I sort of have to catch up and figure out. So I saw, you know, the spine that said John Brown's Body, and my brain immediately was like, ooh, we know that title. We know that. Which happens to me fairly frequently, but then of course my response to that is, what, why? Why do I know that? I'm not sure. Why do I know that? And, you know, then with some quick Googling on my phone, you know, standing next to the books in the thrift store, it kind of comes back to me. It's like, ah, yes, I am quite sure I heard about this poem. Maybe in college, very possibly in a book I've read about the Civil War, which is a whole thing for me. But anyway, I had heard of it, and it is all about, as I'm sure you could have guessed from the title, the Civil War. And it is sort of a sweeping epic of the war and some of the main players of the war, of the Civil War in the United States. And I'm just so excited to have this now, and whoever owned it before took very good care of it. They did put this lovely 10-year warranty something in it for Samsonite from 1998, so that feels appropriate given the name of my channel. Thank you so much, former owner. And yeah, I'm not usually a big poetry person, but for some reason this is incredibly... I'm gonna just drop the books, it's fine. For some reason this is incredibly intriguing to me, so I'm very excited about that. Okay, only 2 more. When I started this video, I was like, oh, I'm just talking about the books that I got. It's not gonna be anywhere near as lengthy as one of the other deep dives into a particular book. I'm so cute when I'm delusional. Okay, there's only 2 more. I'm very excited about this. And this one was $2.50, I think. Truman by David McCullough. I am sorry if I'm mispronouncing his name. Another winner of the Pulitzer Prize, but I think in the 1990s. And I definitely have a thing for presidential biographies. I just love them. I've read quite a few of them. And Abe and Ulysses are the best. Presidents, I won't be taking questions at this time. As for the worst, no comment. Anyway, this one's about Truman, which I'm very, very excited about because he doesn't seem to get quite as much airtime as a lot of other presidents do, but he is fairly pivotal, I think, in at least a few ways, and interesting man, interesting trajectory of his life and his beliefs and everything else. So I was just thrilled to, this is a pretty famous book, as you can imagine, because it won the Pulitzer. And for $2, look, another doorstep. Yes, so that's gonna be awesome. Last book. I lied, there's 2 more. There was another one hiding. Oh my goodness. It's fine, everything's fine. This is, oh, and Truman was from the same thrift store that the one before was, the John Brown's Body. I don't know if I said that, maybe I did. This one is the most niche. I'm gonna tell you the title, and I can just already hear everyone going like, okay, that sounds not interesting. Whatever, it's my book, not yours. So this was $2.60, I think. A lot of these I got for half off, so I'm having to do a little bit of mental math from the price tag. But yeah, 2 something, and it is called Changing Landscapes by Peter Lindenbaum. Subtitle, get ready for it, Anti-Pastoral Sentiment in the English Renaissance. You know you want to read that. You know you do. It is basically all about some of the really famous writers, early English, I don't know if you would say early English, but that a lot of people would, Shakespeare, Sidney, I think, does he, Milton? By Paradise Lost by Milton? Yes, Milton. So anyway, he's basically discussing how each of those writers subverted what they understood to be the conventions of the pastoral tradition by creating anti-pastoral landscapes where shaded bowers are suddenly invaded by wild animals, where lyric interludes are undermined by impinging reality, where contemplation is shattered by battle, and endemic ease by toil and confusion. So this is very much just a nerdy deep dive into sort of thematic elements of writing and how authors of a particular generation are subverting the norms for a particular type of, I don't know if you call it a trope, maybe you would call it a trope, the pastoral trope. Yeah. So, once again, yes. And I love the color of this too. It's neither here nor there, but this teal, I love that. And the fact that they made this picture on the front, very teal. Yay. Okay. Oh, I know why this one is last. Okay, this is really the last one. I'm not inadvertently lying. I made this one last because it's the most exciting. I went to the thrift store, a different jaunt than when I got those other few that I just talked about, and nothing was looking good. Not good at all. And I was about to leave, actually, and I happened to notice this very thin little book on the shelf, and the name jumped out at me because it said Poems by Mary Oliver. And again, I'm saying I'm not a huge poetry person after having bought 2 books of poetry that I'm now sharing with you, but truly I'm not. I actually really struggle with poetry, which is a whole other thing. But amazingly, I did recognize the name Mary Oliver. She's a quite famous American poet. One of her best, most well-known poems, which is why I knew of her, is called Wild Geese. And it is beautiful if you want to look it up. And so anyway, this is one of her poetry collections called Evidence. and it's blue, it's nice. So just that alone, and I flipped it over and it was $3, and cool. Not usually super into poetry, but I know of her. So just kind of on a whim, I opened it up, and again, you're not gonna be able to see this, but it is signed. Cue complete breakdown in the aisle, and of course at first I was like, is this fake? I think when you find something like this in a thrift store, your immediate first thought, or at least for me, is, did some loser put this in here? It's not real, just to wind me up. So yeah, I'm immediately having sort of a mental cacophony in the aisle. I'm like, don't freak out, it's probably fake. Did some Googling, and I was like, for $3, I'm gonna buy it even if it has a fake signature in it. I just really enjoy her. Well, according to what I could find of what her signature looks like, I don't think that it is. I think that it's real, and where it is signed, that apparently, from what I saw of the images, that's where she liked to sign her books. And I'm not a rare vintage anything book collector, like that's not my jam necessarily. I just like books that are interesting to me, but I think this could be quite valuable because she died a few years ago, 2018, 2019, something like that, which it sounds incredibly morbid, but an autographed copy of a book by an author who has passed away is usually more valuable. So I know nothing of how much this would be worth, but I would assume it might be fairly valuable, which is just, yeah, so I had to really have my poker face on when I went to the checkout with this and paid a whole $3 for it. But I just love that. And, once again, how did it end up at the thrift store? Like, this was, I think, probably quite well taken care of. I think someone was really proud of having a signed copy. This is from the early 2000s, this book of poetry, 2009. And yeah, it's in very, very good shape. How did you end up at the thrift store, Oh, it just kills me that you won't ever know. It just kills me. So anyway, that's my sort of final thing. I was so delighted by that. And hopefully can find some poems in here that speak to me, which is always a 50-50 endeavor. As I said, poetry is difficult for me. But that's it. A really succinct look at the books I've acquired over the past, oh gosh, at least 3 months. I've kind of just been letting them sit and pile up because I wanted to do the video all at once. So yes, I hope that was interesting at the very least. As I said, I have kind of strange, eccentric taste in books. But yes, thank you for listening to my ramblings. I hope they're good. I'll try to, whenever I read one of them, keep you posted on if it was good or not. So yeah, I hope you have a great day. And the next video will be the final installment of my continual going on about Middlemarch. So be on the lookout for that. But thank you for letting me chatter on profusely about books, which is just one of the great joys of my life. So bye.